and his writings have been featured in several symposiums and art magazines in Southeast Asia. So he will be talking about his practice and also, in particular, his collective, which is Arungkala. And Arungkala is a Jogja-based multidisciplinary collective practicing alternative forms of knowledge production. They started in 2019, where Arungkala has initiated various research projects related to memory-based research, alternative historiography, museum making, tour performance, archival exhibition, and more. And several of their artistic works and initiatives have been presented at Jogja Biennale, at Folkatorium Muria at Kampung Budaya PG Wetan, and Terak Festival or Public Space Theatre Festival. I'm also very excited to hear more about their artistic initiatives and ongoing projects such as Museum Orang Biasa, Anti-Tour Project, and Walk the Past platform. So how this talk will be structured today is we will hear from Amos about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll have around 15 minutes of my intervention and responses and question, and then give Amos a chance to respond, and then finally open up for Q&A until the end of the talk. So without further ado, I'll pass the time to Amos to start his presentation and share more about his work with Kolektif Arungkala.
Okay, thank you so much, Yvonne, and also PSR, and under Banana Trees Archival Network that give me this opportunity to present and also to open up a conversation with all of you about emotional archive and how our practice in Arungkala and um, me also personally in Jogja. So okay, next slide. Okay, yeah. So I will tell a story first about Arungkala, and you can also read in the PowerPoint. Arungkala is our initiative in Jogja, and since 2019 we we gather as a study group actually in university, and all member of Arungkala actually major in historical studies at university. So but also we are deeply interested in several topic like social history and also history from below, ideas and discourse, and also post-colonial and decolonial studies within Indonesian historiography discourse. Yeah. So also from that background, back then in university when we learn about history and historical methodology in Indonesia, mainly social history has become a main framework. Also, particularly in the historical studies in UGM or in UI in Depok, a lot of historians initiating important research about social history. So we can read the several historians like Bambang Purwanto, Adrian Belatia, and also a lot of initiative from Institute of Social History, for example, in the early 2000. So our generation was born into a period of this kind of discourse, and also the notion of deconstruction, the ideas of deconstruction in history making. And yeah, also we have to acknowledge many historical project or historiography project from the 90s and early 2000 emerged in response to the um, like state-based narratives, state-centered archive, and military-dominated historiography. So um, I think it's important. This information is important to navigate um, what is discourse around us in Indonesia and in our generation also. And as student back then in history related studies, we thought that that mainstream historical research and methodology cannot be our main references um, to study more about like history from below or people history. And so when we begin our process in Arungkala, we want to think about another way of production or reproduction of historical knowledge, and also critical theory that um, can can give us alternative um, from the more like academic and institutional knowledge production in our universities. Okay, next slide. Yeah, next slide. So also for the example, our our project in art related like archival based art practices also inspired with the um, several thinkers like Francois Verge and Tania Bruguera, because I think in the discourse like in historical knowledge production in Indonesia, um, people don't really people don't really think seriously or like discursively about the praxis or practices as also a part of important part of knowledge production. Um, a lot of scholar or historian is just write a books, history book, and think about historiography just as a text based uh, text-based discourse in and also circulated just in the academics field. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so beyond just an overview of this discourse around historiography in Indonesia, I would like to share some personal stories also that may be related uh, to our talks today, like a keyword about sense and effect, also in the context of sensing history, sensorial archive, and so on, people's memory. So um, I want to share about this Pulau Serua and my family archive. Also, it's my ongoing research with Arungkala, and everyone in Arungkala have their own like family history research that we organize like personally. So next slide. This photo was taken by my father when he returned to our family island in Maluku, Eastern Indonesia. It's a pulang kampung homecoming. So my father's family comes from a small island in South Maluku called Serua Island. Uh, you can see in Google Map, and it's very isolated island. And what interesting about Serua Island history is people from Serua believe that their ancestor, or we call it Oyang, came from Banda Island. So in 1621, the ancestor of Serua people, my family, migrated to Serua from Banda, Lontor Island, exactly. Um, Precisely when the POC, or Dutch East Indie Company, carried out Banda Island massacres. Until now, Banda Island are referred as Tanah Oyang, or ancestral island for us by Serua people. And every years we invited to their annual rituals or ceremonies in that island in Banda. And however, like the maritime culture and all the tradition from Serua is are on the first of extinction. So my grandfather, Petrus Ursia, was the last generation who can build and operate ships leading voyage from Serua to Maluku region, East Timor, Surabaya, and even northern part of Australia. So and one day my uncle, a nutmeg and clove farmer, told me that Amos, you cannot write our history, Serua Island history, if you never live in Serua for several years. He told me that if you go there, if you go to Serua, don't bring your history books or don't bring any books. You just have to sit on the shore of the island, and the Oyang will come to you. So my uncle believed that my ancestor personified and remembered through every oral tradition or everyday acts. And there is one myth that also my uncle told me when Serua people sailing away from the island, from Serua to another island, because ships is the only mode of transportation in Serua. When we sailing away from Serua, we must keep looking to the island until it disappears from sight. And once the island becomes blurry in the distance, we must swallow our speed while gazing at the island from afar. So my uncle told me that swallowing speed is a calling to the Oyang, to the ancestor, for protecting all the great grandchildren from Serua that sailing away from that island. So for several years, I already documenting a lot of histories, like, or memories from my family and also our ordinariness there in Serua, like everyday life and so on. And my uncle's story and what he told me is it's very strong for me personally, because um, that story is somehow give me a different point of view about how people there in Serua Island and also uh, in another island in Indonesia remembering the past, and how we still connected with the past and history, that like in everyday life we we always carry that embodied knowledge, embodied history and memory. So um, also it's very important for me personally that affective dimension of history is still in the people's life and daily act and so on. And yeah, the story of Serua Island and my family is just one small example of the people's memory and the people's narrative that I think spread and continually preserve in our uh, everyday life um, in Indonesia and also in Southeast Asia. So next slide. So I think reclaiming history and the past requires decentering praxis, um, an attempt to formulate new modes of knowledge production, challenge the boundaries of conventional historical studies, and conduct historical research with fluidity, informality gestures, and also grounded and participatory approach. And yeah, I think this story and like a background is also became a main part of Arungkala practices. Uh, every Arungkala's member also have their own experience that I think um, inspired by the community itself. When we try to unlearn how um, we we think about history making today, and over the past 5 or 6 years, Arungkala has been grounded in the praxis and that uh, that phase of unlearning from this kind of perspective. So we embraced like microhistory, everyday life narrative, family history, memory studies, and so on. So next slide. I also want to share stories about our practice in Arungkala. So we have several practices like this one, Zen making. We work with the communities in several region, mainly with young people or the mothers in the village to documenting their recipes, their memories, and also um, uh, their story about how uh, commemorate how uh, they commemorate their own identity or uh, small scale uh, um, areas like a village history and so on. So next slide. Yeah, this one also from our projects in Kendeng. We with the Wiji Kendeng young communities in Kendeng Mountains, we documenting their story about resilience because in Kendeng there is a huge cement factory that for this several years, more than 15 years, I think, they want to grab the, the people's land, and also there is some serious ecological issues there in Kendeng, and we documented stories from uh, teenagers there about about trees, about how they grow their own vegetables, their own food, and um, we try to make this archiving as a archiving project as a participatory project, not as a um, not as a one-sided and uh, institutional project that often we see in Indonesia or maybe also here in Southeast Asia as general. Okay, next slide. We also have this anti-tour series. This is experiment where we gather a publics to walk around some areas that we already um, we already search about the archive and so on, and also we collaborate with several community um, activists, and the recent one is Dialita Choir, the ex-political prisoners from 65 period. Yeah. So also in 2023, we began designing a walking tour or tour performance and participatory form of um, historical knowledge production that grounded in the in the space in the a village or in the areas that have a lot of stories. Um, okay, next slide. So yeah, this is some photos of walking tour that still became our ongoing project actually. Uh, yeah, the left side and center image is from anti-tour that we collaborate with the Dialita Choir and Perempuan Mahardika Agus, and also the other picture is from our series the demilitarisasi demilitarized history. So it's we um, we invite people to walk in some areas that have a monument of military figure in Jogja, and we try to deconstruct the monument and public space from the story of the peoples and the participant as itself. We gather uh, stories from participant to rethink about monument um, as a military center history. Um, okay, next slide. And also we have this initiative, Museum Orang Biasa, we call it, or Museum of Ordinary People of or Museum of Ordinariness. So this experiment is about also same like documenting story from people, but this museum is temporary and moving museum, so it's not actual museum. Uh, Usually housed in a single stall within a pasar or traditional market in Jogja and Bandung, and we gather uh, stories from vegetable seller, food stall, and the people that work in the market. So mm, with this initiative, we want to deconstruct um, and challenge the museum making with museum making as a core practice. So we try to um, challenge uh, a way that people usually use museum as a state center, or some case in Indonesia back then also museum is a place where the a state make a historical propaganda um, to to the to the student. So yeah, especially in Soeharto era, a lot of museum built um, and tell a historical narrative from the military, uh, from just a military institution. Yeah, so this museum is not a static building, but we see it as a gathering um, and a practice of camonings, where we want to gather a lot of stories from the people and to archiving and documenting their daily life. Yeah, and have this. Yeah. Also, I want to share one more stories as a example and as a case studies that illustrate our public-based praxis and our focus on people-centered narrative. Yeah, like I said, like Museum of Ordinary People is mobile and temporary initiative that related to walking tour or like walk as a research practice that mainly we organize a lot of work related initiative monthly in Jogja. And also in Jogja, we activate one routes in particular, the Chode River, Sungai Chode or Kali Chode routes. That river is a landmark and main feature of urban development histories of Jogjakarta. So from from that routes, we collect a lot of archive, mainly newspaper, and we gather a lot of clippings, newspaper clippings around floods, banditry, housing, and also accidents. Um, that daily or everyday life narrative occurred in along the riverside or river banks, and we invite participants to walk uh, under one bridge. You can see the image in the right side. That bridge is a railway bridge built by a railway company and Dutch colonial government, um, specifically the transportation department. So on one newspaper in the left side, if you can read Malay or Indonesia, you can read it. Like um, that's a report about people that live in the kampung near the railway, like the urban village near that railway, and people in other archive we found that um, a lot of kampung um, people shared a gossip about a tumbal or sacrificial victim that was believed necessary to ensure the continuation of construction project in that area. So the archive in the left side is a newspaper clipping about Mbogolo, a mother who lived in the nearby kampung, and she was struck by a train while crossing the bridge after washing clothes in the river in Chode, Kali Chode River. So to commemorate her, we gather participants to read that newspaper clipping under the bridge at the exact moment when a train passes overhead. So next slide, you can see the picture here. And the next slide, yeah, this is the event, and yeah, in the right side you can see a lot of our friends gathered to read that archive in the exact point where Bogolo struck by a train. And yeah, this story is just also example of our practices. We invite a broader public to remember everyday history and also to remember the peoples like Bogolo, the peoples that history book also not write about. And we from this serial of tour and like public based initiative, we want to remember everyday history and memories from the kampung, from the area, and also about how like long-term impact of city planning since colonial times is still affecting us. So next slide. So in short, our practices that we want to reflect is about affect based research or affect-based practices in history-related praxis and public-oriented initiative. Because in Indonesia or like in Jogja and Jakarta and um, several areas, there are not many public history initiative that grounded in this kind of practices. But yeah, you can check a few important initiative in in the in under Banana Trees Network course. Yeah, but yeah, I think the fundamental issues in Indonesia right now is how to ensure the publics can involve and participate in the reproduction or production of historical knowledge. Um, because from that, I think from that initiative and from that public-based project, we can make um, another critical um, initiative that um, important today because especially um, there is a huge project by a government like Fadlizon in Ministry of Culture that make a dominant state-led historiographical project and erase a lot of important narrative, people history, and in some periods that we think it's very important for us. And yeah, I think on the other hand, we want to make our project in a participatory gesture and inclusive articulation also for the public. So yeah, I think that's it. Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Amos.
Thank you.
So before I open up to Q&A, so I'm just gonna, I get to ask my questions and I guess I get to provide my responses first. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I felt like it really resonated with me when you said that Kolektif Arungkala focuses on practices as an important part of knowledge production because usually history is seen as a text-based discourse and only circulated within academic field. I think reflecting on this, like personally, how I approach archives and how I approach history is I tend to just look at colonial archives and maybe read against the grain. More of like the Anne Stoller kind of like reading against the grain and trying to center voices. But I think it's also very interesting how instead Kolektif Arungkala tries to do more about in terms of the practice of how it's disseminated and how research is complete and how research of history is done differently. So I'm just going to ask two very quick questions.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can respond to me. I think Kolektif Arungkala, always, typically deals with painful, complex, and contentious history, like with military history, with genocide, with power, and also the role of like archives and records in perpetuating this type of history. So your practice seems to identify problems and then rethink how research and artistic practice should change, and then establish new ways of understanding and telling about Indonesian history. So maybe if you can like just simplify what are like the guiding principles that kind of inform Kolektif Arungkala's approach. And then second question is I think because there's so many of us here, like under Banana Tree Archive, Pusat Sejarah Rakyat, and also Kolektif Arungkala, all dealing with archival work and reclaiming history. And whenever we think about like decolonization or post-colonial work in Southeast Asia, we always think about Bandung spirit and recognize like influence between Malaysia and Indonesia for nationalist thought. But I wanted to know how Kolektif Arungkala sees itself in a wider regional context in Southeast Asia. I know that Amos works on Malaysian left history as well, and I just wanted to ask more about the comparative and transnational perspective that informs Arungkala's practice. So two big questions. One, what is the guiding sort of principles that inform your approach? And second, like what about the transnational or Southeast Asia regional element of to your collective? Yeah, big questions.
Okay. Thank you for. Okay, it's okay. I already write.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, okay. First question about the like our principle, like guiding principle. Like, there is, I think, in short, answer. I have like 2 points. The first is we want to think about memory and like a commemorative act as a um, relational and public based knowledge production, but also relational history making. Because when we learn from university like back then, and um, we feel like or historiography or history making in in their own historical and their own timelines, it's not really engaged with public. That's why maybe um, we know that a lot of historian also became one of the core team or like main head of museum project in Indonesia at the uh, Soeharto era, or maybe uh, until now also a lot of like historian involved in museum, like a government museum or like national museum to make a research or to help the narrative side of the museum. But I think also um, we want to think or to rethink about um, the practice prac- practice historical or like historiography practice in another way, like um, when we write about one particular historical themes. I think it's not enough today. If we just write something about archive or about history, we also try to make sure how the knowledge is distributed in a broader way. And also, the second point is about artistic practices that we also like. It's multidisciplinary practices. When we want to deconstruct a way that history making in Indonesia um, is done back then, I think we also have to collaborate with another um, another friends from different field like artists and um, theater director maybe or actor or also choreographer and um, also like tour guide. Like it's quite far, but yeah, it's still somehow based on that ideas and that ideas, I think. Um, um, yeah, I get confused right now. But yeah.
The second
Um,
one on
uh,
comparative and
okay,
transnational.
okay.
Yeah.
Question. Yeah, about transnational and comparative perspective. I think we also interest with with the keyword that we actually we learned from Bainal Jogja about translocality. I think it's more grounded in the locality narrative that I think we can share, um, and we can celebrate the history, um, maybe in like a regional or in the same condition, like a post-colonial condition. We can we still can share our shared histories together and celebrate um, our own uh, our shared memories. And yeah, because I think the core ideas is relational practices. I think somehow also we very concerned about um, the interaction that we build um, with a people that have a different background and different cultural, cultural differences. And I think we can imagine how to build a solidarity from that point of view. Then discursively we just talk about the terms and the academic definition about what we have to do um, globally or transnationally, but also we are very concerned about how we can build that imagination together in more a grounded way and relational. So it's more like people to people relation, and I think we can think about uh, the framework later after uh, we make the interaction first. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very interesting that like relational making is like the main point, and also not just centering it on historical, text-based discourse, but also like collaborating across. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Instead of just revisiting history, is also rethinking about how we do history, like in everyday as well, and that's when you need like people as well, not just text-based. Okay, so I will open up for Q&A. If you have any questions, maybe you can raise your hand and then feel free to unmute yourself. And if you are shy, you can write in the chat box as well, and then I'll read it out for you. So does anyone have any questions? Because it's not only Amos here, but also I think other members of Kolektif Arungkala are here as well. So yeah, they can also um, share more about their sort of practices as well.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. Ochi has a question. Do you want to unmute yourself? If not, I can read it out for you. Okay, I'll read it out for Ochi. She asks, I'm interested with the anti-museum initiative. I believe it's a very good way to counter the national institution's historical erasure, especially when you mention Fadli Zone's malicious attempt. Just a question, what do you think is the best way to safely spread this counter archive initiative to the public, especially when this knowledge is politically sensitive? Mm, do you want to answer that, Amos?
Yeah. Um,
So it's more about like how to share and do this kind of work, especially when it's politically sensitive. How do you make sure um, that you don't get caught, basically? Yeah.
yeah. From several projects we did, like in this year or several years ago, um, I think we don't really get the surveillance from the institution in Indonesia, but also when we actually the last initiative that we collaborate with Ibu-Ibu Dialita, Dialita Choir. We feel Ibu Dialita or Dialita Choir is braver than us. Actually, like they quote unquote teach us how they survive in the Soeharto era in the like Plantungan camp where they as political prisoner like for several years, like for a long time, detained by military regimes, and we feel like um, that kind of censorship is not um, an issue anymore somehow in our practices because um, like with Ibu-Ibu Dialita, we learned that yeah we have to like we have to be brave like politically in this situation, but also I think um, the institution like a military or police institution is more worried about the demonstration, I think, the protest, than like a discursive or like this kind of initiative. um, yeah, it's I think that's the condition today.
Yeah, so maybe they care more about demonstration than cultural sort of activism. But also, most people want to just tell their story. I think it sounds like that. Maybe also, since there's other members of Collective Arungkala here, do you want to also introduce yourself? Like Lestari, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah,
Oh,
Lestari.
hello, Yvonne. Yeah, actually, there is Ashari as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there is me. Hello, everyone. I'm Lestari, and there is also Ashari.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not Asati, but yeah, Ashari. Hi, Ashari. I hope you can join us later, Ashari. Hope so, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah,
Maybe you can
yeah.
take the next question. Yeah, so there's like a next question by Jayanath in the chat. So she asks basically, Saudara, can you please share the challenges in involving the Marhain in the Museum of Ordinariness? Yeah, so I think this is a question also that I have as well, because like normally when we talk about this kind of work, it always tends to stay within like the art activist scene. But how do you make sure that it really engages with the public and with like working class people and so on? Because it seems like that's like a big part of like Collective Arungkala's practice. Maybe you can share a bit more. Either Lastari or Emma. Sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah, I just wanted people to know that like there's others
Mhm.
people from here, from your collective here as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah, for Janet question, thank you. I think we can see the presentation slide about Kendeng. Yeah, like when we collaborate with young um, young communities in Kendeng Mountain, um, we feel like the ideas of Marhaen also in our historical narrative, it's to how to say it's Sukarno ideas in the 50s, right, in the 40s, or maybe like earlier, like in the 30s, when he write it first. And today, like a petani group or farmers and what he called Marhaen today also, um, already very different, right? And when we um, think about a farmer or like a grassroots community, we also want to make sure their agency or like their voices, it's it's became the center part of our practices. So like this example, the design, we don't want to direct them, or like how to say, like representing them as a um, as a person from outside, but we want to um, be a friend, like to and also build that organic interaction, or like um, spontaneous interaction with them, and to ask first what you need, like what your community need, uh, in uh, to um, to articulate your story, or to rewrite, or to distribute your stories. So I think that's the ideas of our practice in Kendeng. And from that, I think from that premise, from that ideas, and yeah, from that ideas, we somehow we figure out that, yeah, uh, the most important point is not us, it's not our research or our art initiative, but also, but their stories. So if you can, if you see this slide, the pictures, yeah, I think uh, it's representing what we we did with communities there in several part of Kendeng, in Central Java.
Yeah, it sounds like Kolektif Arungkala's work is quite dynamic, so it changes according to different initiative and according to the different communities you work with, and you place them at the center. If that it sounds about right, like that's how I interpret from the work that you've been doing. So I also want to kind of maybe also ask Richie Akbar's question. So he asks, to follow Ochi's question, where are we headed after building from this point from below? In other words, what possible trajectory could arise from this history facing the national ideologies promoted by national museums, like for the Hacking Museum series or Anti-Tour? I think basically what Rifki wants to ask is that what is the trajectory right now, since Fadli Zon is becoming more, has a particular kind of ideology that he wants to push through.
Yeah, thank you, Ape, for your question. Um, yeah, I think yeah, when several months ago, I remember when there is a civil coalition that uh, make one petition and make a meeting with the parliament. I think it's an important moment for us in Indonesia to speak about this project, that project, about how Parlizon make a new historiographical project that erase the people narrative, life history, and also human right violence, uh, violence history, and so on. Um, from that point, I think what we can do right now is to disseminate this critical narrative in a more public way, because I think when in November, when Fadlizon will launch that project, the historiographical project, I think we can boycott, of course, that project, but it's also important to gather, to make a new initiative that um, that somehow also grounded in the people to people initiative, not in the institutional um, way of work, way of producing discourse. And with that, I think with that project, or initiative, we can like challenge that um, state-based project more in the public ways, I think. I also want to mention one recent project that we did with Perempuan Mahardika in Jakarta, but unfortunately, I don't put the image in the slides, but you can check it on our Instagram, Kolektif Arungkala. Yeah, in that archival exhibition with Perempuan Mahardika, we basically we gather some archive from the Congress first woman Congress in Jogjakarta, 1928, and we also collect some writings from the woman's writer. Also, several protest movement in the 50s, 60s, 90s, and 80s also. And we exhibit the archive um, with Perempuan Mardika in YLBHI in Jakarta. So from that initiative, I feel like um, that that spontaneous or like more organic initiative that became very urgent or like important today, because after this, I think it's not same again after Fadlizon or like state publish uh, like a new historiographical project that will be a main material in a school, in every school, um, in um, in all area, all cities in Indonesia. So what we what we face in this year ahead is, I think, it's very huge compared to um, another period since Reformation. I think in this practice, in this field. Yeah, maybe Lestari can also respond to some question here, Yvonne. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, because like there's also a movement, also like especially in Indonesia, to boycott that kind of state narrative, because I think there's also like a women's history kind of exhibition at Museum Indonesia as well. And the reminder that yes, while we do this particular kind of practice, trying to do like alternative sort of history as well, we can also directly just approach the national ideology and basically boycott it and say that this is not necessarily our history that is being told as well. Okay, so Nessa has a long question. Do you want to ask it over video? I just wanted to invite you. If not, I can read it out for you, Nessa. Okay, I'll read it out for you. She says, thank you for the presentation. She resonates a lot with the decolonizing of history, especially in context of methods and positionality as a historian. And she wonders, like, what in your projects, what roles do the members of Arungkala play? So it's more about like how you guys work together, and how do you position yourself as the historian trying out different approaches? Do participants write their thoughts themselves, quoted in verbatim, or are they curated, edited by you guys, or by the collective? So I think she wants to know more about how do historians do history in a way that also questions the colonial logic of history writing. Maybe I'll just stop there first. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Nessa, for your response. Yeah, I think it's very interesting also when I reflect about um, our roles, or like how you say it, like stages, maybe, yeah, like academically, or like uh, in more institutionalized definition of historian. I think um, all of us maybe agree, and maybe friends from Arungkala also can say something lah about this. But yeah, we don't really feel comfortable, I think, when we claim ourselves as historian. But I think what we want to challenge is how that roles, that institutional definition of historian is it's problematic. I also agree with your point actually about historical writing um, is mainly is a colonial way of thinking that historian just have to write. It's colonial logics, and yeah, I agree with that. I think, and that's why I think today we don't really talk about this in Indonesia about public history discourse about historian as public intellectuals or public practitioner, and I think yeah, it's also became our concern right now. But yeah, I think yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think.
Arukala friends, Yvonne.
Oh, Arungkala
Arukala
friends. Yes.
friends.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's okay if I'm muting right now, Yvonne.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Feel free to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ochi, Gianna, Trifki, and Nessa. I hope my textbooks helpful for OG and the other participants. But yeah, thanks for Nessa as well. This is the very question that we want to answer first when we try to regulate our practices, even like the question about do we position ourselves as the historian? This is the very core question even that we put to ourselves, and we choose to answer no if we refer this to the official, to the so-called historian. So that's why when we talk about the zine making as the method, even the entitled as the method, all the participants actually write their thoughts themselves. That's why when you looked at some of the pictures of the zine making, of the zines, it's kind of like I would not say messy, but it is messy. Messy in a good way, raw in a good way. Yeah, messy and raw in a good way in the zines, because they all wrote themselves. And but how could this happen? Actually, we were kind of still spark or ignited some core questions to the participants, and because the zine making also really related, usually more related to archiving memory. That's why we kind of ignited and spark their memory actually through through some questions, just a few questions, because actually from even one or two questions their memory kind of raw, like yeah, sparked in so many ways that eventually they wrote it in the zines. That's one example with the zine making. And for the end title, actually we also still kind of regulate this, because we have so far we have two kinds of end title. Well, I would say like with two methods, where the one with this money, the one with the fake money, I would say it's a fake money, of course. With the fake money, it's more like how we want to include the audience, the public, to also imagine together about the more equal history making, the more the more eagle history making as well. And the second, the one with the group of Dialita Wire, it's really different because then this is the part where the end-title really doesn't have the one single tour guide. And again, we just kind of like sparks and ignited memory from the subjects, which is because the core subjects are some others from the Dialita choir, then they actually the ones that kind of also facilitate the end-title. And also this is the part, the exciting part also about the end-title. When we did the end-title with the Dialita Wire, in fact, it also invite people that actually had the same experience with the mothers from Dialita Wire, like also the people from the ex-political prisoners, other than besides the Dialita Choir, also came actually, and they can also speak about their memory, about some kind of how they menyintas, how they survive. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the exciting part also about the end-title. Actually, we kind of invited more people that actually became the survivors, became I would say the main subjects in the peristiwa, in the phenomena. Yeah, so it became like the celebration. It didn't become like the Dialita choir themselves, but also the other ex-political prisoners. Yes. And so about the continual writing, for example, from the zines, we actually never kind of like make like a proper book like a historian, no, but in some cases, we actually kind of collected the zines from the participants into one bigger zines, and in that zines, sometimes we kind of like give like introduction about what we do with the participants, and then give some essays, but it is more like how we reflected upon the memories of the participants. But in most cases, actually, especially in the Museum of Ordinariness, we really put the zines of the participants in the museum. So it really became like the core narratives, the zines of the participants. Our bigger zines is more like to accompany the core narratives, the core zines from the participants, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, are you? Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, like it seems like Kolektif Arungkala really thinks about the dissemination also of knowledge. It's not just about the production, but also the dissemination. Because normally historians, we always think of like text-based journals, books, but also it seems like Arungkala also makes sure that how they disseminate, whether it's like in a form of performance art or a form of zine making, which is more alternative and more publicly engaged, is also a key part of like your practice as well. Yeah, which is very important aspect of disseminating and making sure history is shared and engaged with in that way. Maybe Sulin, you have a question, right? Do you want to ask it next?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Amos and Lestari. These are just such wonderful examples. Your work is so really inspiring. I guess I was just wondering, I had two questions. One is about your audiences and the kinds of audiences you managed to attract and engage in your work? Is it kind of a diverse audience, or is it particular kind of urban young people? And the second question was just, I guess, what you were saying, Lester, is that, there's a sense in which the audience needs to have this immersive experience to really connect with the kind of emotion, like the actual experience of history. So that kind of sense of creating an immersive experience where they're walking under the bridge and like experiencing things as people did at that time, or doing those zines. There's a sense of really having that kind of audience participation. And I guess I would just say it's really kind of cutting edge public history in some ways. And I would say I wouldn't sell yourself short about not being historians. I think you are really innovative public historians. So I would just say that yeah, so I think that it's just wonderful work. So I just wondered if you could say something about that kind of sense of immersion, that the real sense of wanting to have the audience immersed in that history through that emotional connection.
Yeah, thank you so much, Celine, for your response. Yeah, I think the first question about audience. Yeah, we try to make and we try to invite actually a diverse audience in every project that we initiate. Um, when we initiate something in the village or like in Kendeng Mountain, the audience is the people in the village, and um, for the walking based initiative and tour or walk the path, we also invite the audience that live nearby or like locals audience that some of them are student and also like young people from Jogja. But yeah, for several project also we invite, for example, like communities from like school or like a teacher from several school in Jogja. So it's yeah, the ideas is we we try to make uh, and we try to invite like a very diverse audience. Yeah, I think second question. Um, I already forget.
About
Sorry.
do you want
Having the audience engaged, immersed in that emotional experience to make that connection between the kind of past and the present. I guess that seems to be a lot of your philosophy, is that, um, kind of creating that emotional link through audience experience.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's why we see artistic practices, or we think about artistic practices as a just a medium for um like a tools for us to um to connecting that history, the past and today, like here and now, our here and now realities, right? And I think artistic practices is a very powerful tools that like a tour performance, or when we make a somehow a theater project also, um, and when we use zine as a medium, it's somehow very powerful, and we try to explore every possibilities in every mediums that we can learn about it, to make sure how people feel and reconnect with the past, and also with most important the most important thing, they can reconnect personally or collectively with their own histories. Like I think it's that's the very important things in our practice. We want to uh, make sure people reconnect with their own history. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, we have one final question. It's from Zikri and I guess, and also to do with the title of this talk, and also with what you just answered with Sulin, since it's about emotional archives, right? Exploring sense and fact. I wanted to just, maybe you can close by talking more about how do emotions, which you have to deal with a lot of emotions. It seems when you go and uncover this kind of history, especially with grief and all this complex and painful traumatic history. I was wondering, how do this dimension offer like a more layered and nuanced understanding? And also one last question is that also, I think while we talk about Kolektif Arungkala's work, as it seems that it's a lot of like uncovering of power and very serious talk, I want to say also that their practice is also really has this element of humor as well. So their most recent work, Pameran Arsip Sejarah Gerakan Perempuan in collaboration with Perempuan Mahardika, they talked about this a bit earlier. They imagined Marcina, a female labor activist who was murdered during Suharto regime. But in order to like walk towards her Marcina being on the Indonesian rupiah, you had to step on rupiah with Suharto's face to walk towards Marcina's face. I think that's really funny, like dealing with the heaviness of history in that way. So maybe, yeah, you can kind of close with this question of like, how does emotions inform your work, and also the role of humor in dealing with the heaviness of your work as well.
Yeah. I think, yeah. Before humor, I will s- um I will say about how we also um like try so hard to make sure this kind of initiative is safe place for everyone, right? It's always like core ideas, or like uh, core principle for us to make this initiative is a safe place. But also, for your question about humor, I think it's, yeah, humor also like a very powerful some way. Uh, that project that you mentioned about Suharto, it's very funny, right? Because like it's also somehow ironic, I think, because um, yeah, also this month, a lot of friends, and we also join several protests in Kamisan, and when we prepared that exhibition in Jakarta, um, um, the also Fadlizon Circle want to propose Suharto as a national heroes, right? So it's on one hand, it's very urgent issues. Suharto uh, proposed to the parliament, or to the process, or maybe directly to Prabowo, right? I think in that legal process, because the one that will um, 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 legalize status of this proposal is at the end is president, right? So um, at that moment, I think we just have to to fight against, but also somehow we need that kind of humor, sarcasm, and using like that kind of ironic and sarcastic public, um, how to say, like participative installation lah, archival, very simple one. People can step into the Suharto phases in the archival exhibition. So yeah, I think that's also became our main ideas to make humor in the hopelessness, in our hopelessness, because we are young and also sometimes yeah, sometimes hopeless lah, we feel in this situation. But yeah, we have to make like that political humor a lot. Yeah, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I think because like at the core of it, like what Kolektif Arungkala does is that you have to deal with all this like traumatic history, traumatic military history. So humor is also like a way forward as well when you want to like deal with all these difficult emotions as well. Yeah. And I think when I saw that at the Pameran Arsip Sejarah Gerakan Perempuan, I was like, wow, what is this collective? So interesting, and they're so funny and bold as well to use humor and blend history in that way. So thank you. I think that's all our questions for today and all our time. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today and for hearing from Amos, from Lestari on what Kolektif Arungkala does. Please follow them on Instagram. And also, I invite everyone to also follow and on Pusat Sejarah Rakyat and also Under the Banana Tree on their social media platforms as well. Feel free to ask them any questions and connect with them. And here is to rethinking public history beyond text-based discourse and also centering more kind of community-based voices as well. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, my computer is lagging, but yeah, thank you so much everyone for coming.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Amos, Yvonne, Lestari, and Sulin for coming, and everyone, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you, everyone.